Hi, I'm here with Michelle de Souza, Chief Data Officer at Age UK. Thank you very much for taking the time out of what is no doubt a very busy time at the moment to speak to us, Michelle.
You're very welcome.
So we're going to be discussing how Age UK have prepared themselves to get ready for May the 25th and how the journey has been over the last couple of years. So Michelle, if you had to describe your response to GDPR in one word, what would that response be?
I think Age UK has taken a very pragmatic approach to GDPR, and if I could use two other words, I'd say we've also been practical and quite hard-headed when it comes to looking at the level of resource that we might need and making sure that the decisions made in terms of GDPR governance are very much aligned to our data management processes. So not separate to, but embedded into.
So can you take us back to where the journey started? When did the preparation start for GDPR and what has the process been to get you ready for May the 25th?
I think in common with many charities, we were quite shaken by the scrutiny and the negative feedback that came about following the tragic death of Olive Cook in 2015. And that led us to launch an organisational-wide audit in 2016, early 2016. And what we set about to do was to look at every single business process that Age UK carried through that involved personal data. And if you like, that gave us our starting point to move forward. We were also incredibly lucky because we were midway through our CRM platform implementation. And so what we were able to do there is perhaps build some of the functionality that others are probably still trying to build at this moment. It was an opportune moment to deliver functionality perhaps that would allow us to run a preference centre. Mm-hmm. And to accompany that, I gathered a group of interested parties from across Age UK to form the aptly named Data Regulation and Audit Group, which we call DRAG here. And we have met faithfully every month, and we've looked at that audit and we've tried to take that forward and build a governance framework that allows Age UK, will allow Age UK, if you like, to move forward with confidence.
Yeah. So those stakeholders, did you have to drag them into the DRAG group, or was there already an appetite within the business and you were sort of forming that?
There was a lot of dragging in the beginning,
yeah.
I have to admit. And they were an interesting mix. So mainly heads of department, heads of business units, but I was very keen to get some data practitioners in there as well. And I think the mix worked really well. And in the early days, it was a very passive group meeting. So very much, I was talking a lot, people were listening, some people were looking out the window. But I'd like to say as the months progressed, and people learned more about the subject, as indeed did I, we became a more dynamic group, and we were able to look at some of the barriers that we were facing as we took our sort of step change towards driving a more responsible marketing culture through the organisation.
And do you think external press coverage and just generally the awareness of GDPR increasing within people's daily lives, do you think that had an impact in getting people more engaged into the DRAG group?
I think it certainly did. You could almost argue, I would say, you never call, you never write, and here you are now at my desk every other day asking me questions, and that's literally what it's been like. Yeah, so, eternally grateful to all that external press, and really what it did, it brought it to the front of mind for all individuals, and it's been at the top of the agenda specifically probably for the last 6 months, I'd say.
Yeah. And what about from sort of senior stakeholder sponsorship within the organisation? Have you had a senior sponsor at the sort of trustee level, if you like, or has this been something that you've had to push through without that support, I guess?
I think initially I probably was the catalyst, but I've had support, particularly from our chief executive. Yeah. And the SMT group. Of course, the challenge is that any business dynamic, any business sees the ebb and flow of different issues arising. So when you've got a project that's rolling over a long period of time, it's bound to be pushed off course with other more relevant, timely issues that need to be addressed. And keeping SMT's focus has been hard. And I think really, again, the external publicity has helped. There has been an increasing level of concern, and the challenge for me has been to make sure that they're worrying about the right things, and the things that they need to be concerned about.
So how have you balanced that sort of, I don't know what the right word would be, hysteria? You know, the 4% global turnover fines, that you'll have no one to market, with the practicalities of having to get to a place where you can continue to raise funds as an organisation and sell products as an organisation?
I think marketeers are optimistic by nature, and I think what they've been looking for is a level of reassurance, which I've hopefully given them. So almost steady as she goes, we will move forward and we will take each barrier as it comes. So I think the reassurance and the assurance factor has helped all of them have that confidence that they need to go about their daily activity.
And you mentioned barriers there, so what have been the biggest challenges that you've come across, and how have you got over those particular challenges?
As we discussed, disinterest at the beginning. Most definitely, GDPR is a principles-based regulation, and that's very difficult to understand. Whilst I think people should welcome a principles-based regulation, I certainly do, almost one would argue that on a day-to-day basis, people are after a prescriptive way of working. They want to be told what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So when you present them with a challenge whereby they might arguably go down two routes, and there is a need for the organisation to make a choice, then that tends to flummox individuals, and it causes anxiety.
When I talk to people about GDPR, it's 95% of the time, if not more, about consent and legitimate interest and contactability and who are we going to be speaking to. Do you also think about the other side of it, which is about the fact that data has to be kept up to date and clean? And
I think we do, but intrinsically, if you are a data practitioner, then you would fail commercially if you didn't do that anyway, wouldn't you?
In terms of GDPR overall, do you think the business sees GDPR as a threat or as an opportunity?
I think it's both. I think it depends on your stance. So through no fault of their own, I think some organisations have become, perhaps because of the experiences they've had in the last few years, they're very defensive. And therefore they're lacking in confidence. And I think because of that, they are unable perhaps to optimise and flex GDPR in the way they might to meet the commercial objectives of their organisation. And I think that's a real loss for them, actually.
I think that's particularly true in your sector. So you've seen a wide variety of responses from people who have gone entirely opt-in quite early, through to people who, with the best will in the world, have just gone into stasis and are doing absolutely nothing. Where would you see yourselves on that spectrum?
We've always been very pragmatic in view of the market. Age UK's marketing income predominantly comes from offline direct marketing. We've always operated under legitimate interest, and whilst there was a period of time when even I felt anxious, wondering what the future held, we've kept the faith, and we believe we can evidence and that we're accountable and that we are responsible marketeers, certainly, and we feel we can continue to communicate with our audience segments through legitimate interest for direct marketing.
Which is a good response, to be clear as an organisation. So if you had to give one piece of advice to someone who's sitting in an organisation in a similar role to yourself, what would your one piece of advice be as we get towards the dreaded May the 25th?
I think GDPR, I've heard this, it's not my quote, is a journey, not a destination. And as we approach the date, have faith. If you're not quite there on the 25th, just keep going until you are there. And if you're demonstrating the will to comply, but you haven't dotted all your I's or crossed all your T's, then have the belief that you need to move forward, and that you can move forward, and draw in that there is expertise in the industry. Certainly there are trade bodies who are well versed to support, and look outwards for that support.
Yeah. So you said there it's like the start on the 25th. Having been at this for over 2 years now, does it feel like the end of something on the 25th of May and then the start of something else? Beginning of another one, just another step along the way?
I'd liken it to having spent many months studying for my driving test, and I've been working really hard towards this test. So come the 25th, I hope I qualify, and of course I won't know till I get pulled over.
Lovely, thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, just elaborate.
Even a different